She wasn't born bad at money. She was taught to stay out of the conversation. Here is how to walk back in. I want to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly, just to yourself, right now, in the moment, before you have had time to decide what the correct answer should be. When you hear the word investor, not saver, not someone who is careful with money, not someone who budgets well, but specifically investor, what does that person look like in your head? Take a moment. Let the image arrive without editing it. For most women, the image that comes is not them. It is older. It is almost certainly male. It is someone with the kind of calm financial authority that does not look acquired. It looks inherited, innate, simply present from the beginning. Someone reading a financial newspaper in an airport with the specific ease of a person who has never felt uncertain about whether this was their conversation. Someone speaking about market positions at a dinner table while the people around them listen and nod, with the particular deference reserved for people who are assumed to know what they are talking about. Someone for whom the question of whether they belong in this space has never once occurred to them. That image did not arrive in your head by accident. It was placed there, over years, through thousands of small, mostly invisible moments that told you, not dramatically, not with anyone intending harm, but quietly and consistently, and with remarkable thoroughness, that this particular conversation was not meant for you. The good girl money trap is what happens when that placement completes. And today, we are going to name every layer of how it was built, calculate precisely what it costs you for every year you stay inside it, and construct the specific framework for walking back into the room that has always been yours, starting today. Not when you feel ready, today. This is Financially Her, and this is the video I needed when I was 22, when someone should have sat down with me and said, there are things you have been taught about yourself and money that are not true, and the sooner you unlearn them, the better your financial life is going to be. Meet Rachel. Rachel is 31 years old. She has a master's degree in communications from a university she worked hard to get into. She is professionally accomplished. Her manager relies on her judgment, her colleagues respect her, she was promoted after 4 years at her current company, and nobody who worked alongside her was surprised by it. She earns $58,000. She is not someone who avoids difficult things or backs away from complexity. She navigates difficult client relationships and complicated internal negotiations with composure and without flinching. She has a 401k at work. She enrolled during HR onboarding because the paperwork was in the new employee packet, and the default contribution was 4%, so she left it at 4%. She has not changed it since she started. She has never logged in to see what it is invested in. She thinks it might be a target date fund, but she is not entirely certain. She does not have a Roth IRA. She does not have a brokerage account. She has a savings account at her bank that earns 0.4% interest. She does not know the exact rate, but she suspects it is low because it is a large traditional bank, and large traditional banks pay almost nothing on savings accounts. She knows she should move the savings to a high-yield account. She's been meaning to do it for approximately 8 months. She has not done it yet. She has the brokerage app downloaded on her phone. She downloaded it 14 months ago. She has opened it twice, looked at the initial account setup screens, and closed it both times without completing the process. Ask Rachel why, and she gives you an answer that is completely and genuinely honest. She does not feel ready. She feels like she needs to understand more before she starts. She worries she'll do it wrong. She has a persistent sense that investing requires a level of knowledge, confidence, and financial fluency that she hasn't quite reached yet, and that once she reaches it, she will be ready to begin. That is the plan. Wait until she's ready, then start. Rachel is not alone in this. Research consistently shows that 35% of women cite lack of confidence as the primary reason they don't invest, even among women whose measured financial knowledge is equal to or higher than men, who are already investing without hesitation and without waiting to feel ready first. Women know as much. They act on it less.
That is not a capability gap. That's a confidence gap. And confidence gaps are not born. They are constructed with considerable precision over years of accumulated experience that teaches a person their place in a particular kind of conversation. Rachel's gap is not a character flaw. It is a curriculum. She was taught it, and she's been paying the tuition for it every month for 14 months while the app sits on her phone. How the gap is built. I want to trace exactly how this happens, because understanding the construction of the trap is what makes it possible to dismantle it, rather than simply feel frustrated by it. It is built in 3 stages, and it begins significantly earlier than most people recognize. Stage 1. Early childhood. Research from the University of Cambridge found that by the age of 7, children have already absorbed gender associations around money that are measurable and consistent. Boys are significantly more likely to associate financial concepts, earning, investing, managing wealth, with themselves. Girls are significantly more likely to associate those same concepts with men. No one sat them down and explicitly taught this. They observed it.
They watched who handles money at home, who speaks with authority about financial topics at the dinner table, whose name is on the accounts, who the examples in school materials are about. Children are extraordinarily attentive to what is normal in their environment. In most environments, the investor is not a woman, and 7-year-olds register that observation and file it somewhere that shapes how they see themselves in relation to money for years afterward. Stage 2. Formal education. Financial literacy education, where it exists at all, is gender neutral in its stated intention and male default in its actual execution. The hypothetical investors in the examples are named James and Robert. The career earnings projections assume uninterrupted work histories that match the male pattern more than the female one. Nobody teaches a 15-year-old girl that she will statistically need to save more aggressively than her male classmate to retire at the same age with equivalent financial security, because she will earn less over her career, take career breaks, and live longer. Nobody teaches her that when she does invest, she is statistically likely to outperform him. That information is not considered relevant to her education. It is not considered relevant to her at all. Stage 3. Adult experience. By the time Rachel entered the workforce, the confidence gap was fully installed. What adulthood contributed was not its creation, but its ongoing reinforcement through accumulated small moments. The first salary negotiation where she accepted the first number because she did not feel certain she had the standing to push back. The first financial advisor meeting where the advisor's attention tracked naturally toward the male partner in the room. The first investment conversation at a work social event where she found herself listening rather than contributing, waiting until she understood enough to say something worth saying. Each moment is small in isolation. Each one is, on its own, almost meaningless. Accumulated across years, they produce a consistent, reliable message. This is not your domain. Stay on the edges until you are certain. You are not certain yet. Rachel arrived at 31 carrying a downloaded app she had not opened, saving money in an account that was losing real purchasing power to inflation, contributing to a retirement account she had never looked at. Not because she was careless or incapable, but because a system she had grown up inside had spent 24 years telling her, with considerable polish and no particular cruelty, to stay outside the financial conversation until further notice. What it costs. Let me put a specific number on the good girl money trap, because it deserves a number. And a number is what makes the cost real rather than abstract. Rachel is 31. She earns $58,000. If she opens a Roth IRA today and contributes $400 per month from now until 65, at the historical average market return of 8% annually, she will have approximately $1,060,000 at retirement, tax-free. Every dollar of that growth protected from the IRS because she chose a Roth when her tax bracket was low and her compounding runway was long.
If the app stays on her phone for another 5 years, if she waits until she feels ready, until the confidence arrives on its own in advance of the first action, and she starts at 36 instead, she will have approximately $720,000. The 5 years of not quite feeling ready cost her $340,000. Not because she made bad investments, not because anything went wrong, just because she waited. Because the accumulated weight of being quietly told to stay outside the conversation kept her outside it for 5 more years after she already knew enough to walk in. And here's the layer underneath that. Rachel is not holding her savings in a high-yield account earning 4.5%. She's at 0.4% in a large bank savings account. Inflation is running at approximately 3%, which means every year the real purchasing power of her savings is declining by approximately 2.6%. She is not standing still while she waits to feel ready. She is moving backward. Slowly, quietly, and entirely because nobody told her that the feeling of readiness is not a prerequisite to investing, it is a consequence of it. The unlearning. Here's the framework. 5 moves, in the order that works. Move 1. Name the internal voice and refuse to let it pass as objective truth. Every time you hear the voice that says you need to understand more before you start, ask yourself one specific question. Would a 28-year-old man with exactly my current level of financial knowledge be waiting? The research is unambiguous. Men open brokerage accounts with significantly less financial knowledge than the average woman who hesitates before doing the same thing. The standard Rachel is holding herself to is not an objective financial competence threshold. It's a confidence bar that was installed by a system that was not designed with her active participation in mind. Naming it does not dissolve it instantly, but it stops it from operating as if it were objective truth. Once you can see it as something installed rather than something innate, it loses the majority of its authority. Move 2. Act before the feeling arrives, because the feeling follows action. It does not precede it. This is the single most important thing I will say in this entire video. The feeling of being ready to invest is not something that arrives before your first investment. It is something that arrives because you made your first investment. Rachel will not feel like an investor when she has learned enough. She will feel like an investor when she has opened the account, made the first contribution, and seen the balance change because of something she did. The first step is not understanding everything. It is opening the account. You do not need to understand how a combustion engine works to drive a car. You need to turn the key. Turn it. Move 3. Start with the simplest possible vehicle and resist every urge to complicate it until you're genuinely bored of the simplicity. Rachel does not need a portfolio with sector allocations, international exposure weighting, and quarterly rebalancing protocols. She needs one fund, a total U.S. market index fund or an S&P 500 index fund from Fidelity, Vanguard, or Schwab. One fund, one automatic monthly contribution. Set it and leave it alone. Do not check it every day. Do not optimize it based on market news. Do not react when the market drops 15% in a quarter. Leave it. The women who build the most wealth through investing are not the most sophisticated investors in the room. They are the most consistent.
Consistency over complexity. Every single time. Move 4. Find your community and make money a conversation you have out loud, rather than something you process entirely alone. Financial shame is sustained entirely by silence. The reason most women do not discuss their salary, their investment balance, their retirement account, or their debt is exactly the same reason they were never fully invited into the financial conversation in the first place. The silence was the original lesson, and the silence perpetuates the lesson. Every generation of women who does not talk about money openly in front of the next generation produces another generation of women who believe it is not their conversation. Find women who talk about money without apology. Online communities, in-person groups, a text thread with 2 friends who are both trying to build. The format does not matter. When you hear a woman say, "I maxed my Roth IRA this year," or "I just crossed $80,000 in my investment account," without embarrassment or hedging, something shifts in your understanding of what is possible that no amount of solo reading can replicate. You stop hearing wealth building as something other people do. You start hearing it as something you do. Move 5. Make your financial progress visible to one specific person, and let what happens next teach you something about confidence. Rachel told her younger sister she had opened the Roth IRA. One person, not an announcement, not a detailed explanation of her investment philosophy, just, "I opened it. I put in $200. I set up the automatic transfer." Her sister's response was, "That is brilliant. How do I do that?" And in the moment of explaining the process to someone who needed the explanation, something shifted permanently in how Rachel related to her own financial knowledge. She was no longer the person who did not quite know enough to start. She was the person who knew enough to help someone else start. That shift from uncertain observer to knowledgeable participant is not achievable through solo preparation. It happens in conversation. It happens when you make the private thing visible to one trusted person and discover that what you have built already has weight and value and the power to help someone else do the same thing. There is solid research behind this. Accountability to a specific person produces measurably better financial outcomes than accountability to an abstract goal. The number in the app is abstract. The conversation with your sister on a Sunday afternoon is concrete and social and real. The social reality of another person knowing what you are building makes the building feel real in a way that a private aspiration does not. Find one person. Tell them one specific action you already took, not a plan, an action. Watch what the next action feels like after that. This is also the answer to the underlying problem, the one beneath the confidence gap. The confidence gap is not just about investing, it's about permission. And the permission problem is not solved by gaining more knowledge. It's solved by deciding that the knowledge you already have is sufficient to take the first step, and then taking it, and then finding out that you were right. Rachel knew enough to open a Roth IRA 14 months before she opened it. She knew what a Roth IRA was. She knew she should be contributing to one. She knew that index funds were the recommended starting point. The information was not the barrier. The barrier was the persistent sense that she didn't yet have permission, that the threshold required to begin was just slightly higher than wherever she currently was. That threshold was placed there without her consent by a system that benefited from her staying outside the financial conversation. It's not a real threshold. It does not exist. The moment you treat it as real, it functions as real. The moment you recognize it as installed, it loses its power. Rachel, where she is now, Rachel opened her Roth IRA 3 weeks after watching a video not unlike this one. She contributed $200 the first month because that was what felt comfortable without making the budget uncomfortable. She picked one index fund. She set up the automatic monthly contribution. She told her younger sister because she needed to tell someone and was not ready for it to be a big public thing. Her sister asked how to do it. They opened her sister's account together the following Sunday afternoon. 6 months later, Rachel increased her contribution to $300 after identifying 2 subscriptions she had forgotten she was paying for. 1 year after opening the account, she negotiated a raise at her company for the first time in 4 years, a skill covered in full in Script 12, and increased the contribution again with part of the raise. She didn't feel like an investor before she started. She felt like one approximately 4 months in when she logged in one morning and the balance had grown by $400 from market returns without her doing anything at all. She said it felt like discovering something that had been there the whole time, a mechanism that was always running, that she had always been adjacent to, that she simply never believed was running for her specifically. It was always running for her. She just needed permission to walk through the door. The close. You were not born bad at money. That's not a thing that exists. Women are not genetically less capable of investing or building wealth or making good financial decisions. The research says the exact opposite. Consistently and across decades, women who invest outperform men. Women are more patient with a strategy, more consistent through market volatility, less likely to panic and sell at the bottom and lock in a loss. The gap between women and financial security is not a capability gap.
It's a participation gap, and participation gaps close by one mechanism and one mechanism only: participating. Not when you feel ready, not when you understand more. Today. Open the account, pick the fund, set the contribution. Tell one person. The room has always been yours. You were just told it wasn't. That was never true when they told you. It's not true now. Subscribe if you're walking back in. That's exactly who this channel is for. And the community you'll find here is full of women who made the same decision at different moments on different timelines and discovered the same thing Rachel discovered. The mechanism was always running for them. Next week, starting over financially at 40 after divorce, one of the most financially significant life events a woman can face, Carol's 90-day plan, her specific numbers, and why 42 is a different starting line, not a closed window. I'll see you there.